Hello everyone and welcome back to Age Nagash, the channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar, and in this video we're going to be returning to the Maggotkin of Nurgle in the Army Archive series, and in particular we will be looking at their artifacts. So we'll be looking at the artifacts for the ROTBRINGERS, the Demons and also the Mortals. Each of these has 6 artifacts to choose from, so there's plenty here and many options. For an example, if you are a ROTBRINGER hero and you also have the Mortal keyword, you'll also be able to choose from the Mortal artifacts. That gives you a total of 12 artifacts. If you're new to Age of Sigmar and you're not really too sure what an artifact is, essentially your army gets 1 artifact, and for every battalion you have in your army you gain an additional artifact. Only a hero can have an artifact, and it cannot be a named character, as they already have like their own unique special abilities essentially. And how they are listed on points and stuff is that would be a unique character, so they cannot have any artifacts themselves. However, with no further ado, let's dive in to see which ones we've got. Now we're going to look at ROTBRINGER, then the Demon ones, and then the Mortal ones. So starting with ROTBRINGER. So the first one is Split Horn Helm. So roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to the bearer. On a 6+, the wound is negated. So firstly, Nurgle, pretty resilient army anyway. A 6+ to negate a wound or mortal wound, very important difference there, because there is a difference between a mortal wound and a normal wound, being able to negate them. However, on a 6+, I know there's a lot of artifacts out there like this, however I just feel like it's a bit too flat. Yeah, he's going to save a 6th of all overall damage, but let's say he's only a 5 wound hero, something along those lines. It's not really going to make a huge difference. And also, if it is a big monster, yeah, it will help, definitely, because if you put, like, I don't know, the Glock King down on the table here, because remember this is for the ROTBRINGER heroes, the enemy is going to shoot it, stab it with anything they can get their hands on, and if they do have kitchen sinks, they will be thrown at this thing. So, giving it a 6+ after damage save, on top of everything else it's got, is going to make it more survivable. However, it's just on a 6+. If it was a 5+, I'd say it was really good. A 6+, it's okay. It's not terrible. It's okay. Okay, and then going on to the second one, we've got the Muttergrub. So, if the bearer is a wizard, they can attempt to cast 1 additional spell in each of their hero phases. If the bearer is not a wizard, they can attempt to cast Foul Regenesis in each of their hero phases. This does not give them the ability to unbind spells. So firstly, means they can cast an additional spell, which is good. Can make, you know, what I call level 1 wizards, you know, that can cast 1 spell, now they can cast 2. The Glock King can cast 2 spells, can now cast 3, which is actually really quite big now, especially with all the realm spells you've got going on, which is always a huge thing. Especially most of the games I play these days are set in the realms. I think that's the case for most people. To the tournaments I've been to, they're set in the realms. So before, when it was like a wizard can cast an additional spell, it's like, it's alright, but I don't really have too many to choose from. However, with realm spells, and you also get to pick a spell from the lore that's within this book as well. And with Mystic Shield and Arcane Bolt, and also the unique spell that wizard's going to have on their own War Scroll, you're going to have plenty to choose from. So that's not bad, particularly if you want to go magic heavy, and if you're fighting against a magic heavy army, just to be able to try and chuck some of your own magic at them if you like, or if you're going against an army that doesn't have much magic, you can really sort of stamp them into the ground with your magic capabilities. Now, if you are not a wizard, you get to cast the Foul Regenesis spell. Now, the important thing to know about this spell is that it is unique to Nurgle. It's on page 66 in the battle tome, and what this spell means is every Nurgle wizard can cast it. Now, it can only be cast once in your hero phase. It's not each hero can cast it all the time. It's just they all know the spell essentially. So it has a casting value of 7. If successfully cast, pick a result from the stage of corruption table. The cycle of corruption is immediately reset to the stage you picked. I think that is a really, really good spell. As I've been telling you, the cycle of corruption in the last videos, it is good. It's a nice ability, allegiance battle trait you've got. However, it is quite random. This just, well, it makes it incredibly less random. Yes, you do need to cast on a 7, so quite hard to cast. It's the average on 2 dice, but never really seems to be when you actually roll the dice. So yes, that is good. However, if you've already got wizards in your army, they're probably already going to be trying to cast that. What I would say is, if you don't really know what sort of command trait to go for, and you haven't got a preference at all, it's not a bad one to put on your general if he's not a wizard, because it's like, while your wizards can be casting those spells they really need to cast, this guy can just be casting that every time, just so you can pick the result you want. You know, if you want constant movement, all those sorts of things, you can really try and go for it. On the other hand, if you give it to a wizard, this artifact, like I said, it gives them an extra spell to cast, which means they can use the extra spell to try and cast the Foul Genesis. So yeah, not a bad artifact, the Mutter Grub. Certainly better than the 6-up death save, as I call it for the last one. Right, number 3, we've got Rust Fangs. At the start of the combat phase, pick one enemy unit within 3 inches of the bearer. Subtract 1 from its save rolls for the rest of the battle. You cannot use this ability more than once on the same enemy unit. Okay, I like this one a lot because it's also at the start of each combat phase, not just your own. It's at each combat phase. Yes, you have to pick an enemy unit within 3 inches, quite restrictive. It has to be in combat with you, essentially. But that enemy, like I said, has -1 to its save, but it's not once per battle. You can continuously try to do that, and that might make the enemy a bit scared to put things near you, you know? If they've got a big, you know, I don't know, nice model, like, I don't know, a buffed up Star Drake to make it so it can't die unless you've got mortal wounds, but it might make the Star Drake be scared to go near your general because it just doesn't want to have its save retracted, especially if your general's like a small character. It plays a part and can really not heavily impacting your opponent's mind, but it's another thing they've got to think about. As I always say, the more problems you present to your opponent, at some point they are going to make a mistake and cock up for you to take full advantage of it. So yeah, the Rust Fang is pretty cool. The next one is Flesh Peeler. So what this does is, in your hero phase, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 6 inches of the bearer. On a 5+, that enemy unit being rolled for suffers D3 mortal wounds. D3 mortal wounds is good. Range of 6 inches is good. However, on a 5+, 1 in 3 of those units will take D3 mortal wounds. I'm not a fan of that. Correct me if you guys, you know, you play the army and this turns out to be really well. Does wonders, but I just think that's too... If it was on a 4-up, I think that would be fantastic, but on a 5, that's, for me anyway, I don't know if it's because of my dice rolls, but I would just be failing this continuously. It would just be really annoying. So yeah, I wouldn't take that. Okay, number 5, we have the Bile Heart. So roll a dice each time you allocate a wound or mortal wound to the bearer in the combat phase, and it is not negated. On a 4+, the attacking unit suffers 1 mortal wound after all of its attacks have been made. Now this is going to be great if you've got like a big model. So we're talking one of the big monsters you got for your ROTBRINGERS. Now at this point I will correct myself because I did mention the Glock King earlier in reference to giving him the artifact that gives him an extra spell to cast. He's a unique character, like I said at the start of the video, so he can't take an artifact. There's also going to be things like the Maggot Lords as well, because they are named characters. So really your sort of heroes thinking about it for your Nurgle, for ROTBRINGERS, aren't particularly that big. They're not tiny, but they're not huge. They can't take a load of hitting power until they go down. And while you think, oh yeah, but all attacks are resolved and all that sort of thing, so it doesn't matter if he gets killed, there's still a good chance that those attacks can rebound and hurt the enemy. However, your heroes have got smaller bases, haven't they? So less enemies attacking them. So it's very good how it is a 4+. Instead of like a 5-up, which I would expect. If a 5-up, I'd say, nope, not worth it. 4-up, maybe. But I think there are better ones to choose from. Right, and then number 6, we have the Fescue Flask. So you can use this Fescue Flask once per battle at the start of your hero phase. If you do so, roll a dice. On a 2+, any wounds the bearer has suffered are healed. On a 1, the bearer is slain. If the bearer is slain by the Fescue Flask, before you remove it, the bearer's model, you can add a 1 Beast of Nurgle to your army and set it up within 1 inch of the bearer. I like this a lot. It's a great way for your general to stay alive, and if your general dies, you get a Beast of Nurgle for no, you know, reserve points or anything. You just get a Beast of Nurgle. Now, the Beast of Nurgle is probably not going to be as good as that hero. However, you're not just losing it. I would expect to say on a 1 it is slain, and like on a 3-up the hero's healed, and on a 2 nothing happens. But no, it's on a 2-up he's healed. So that, depending on what you're going for in your army, that is potentially the best one here. If I'm looking at the rest of them, what would I say? I like the Mutter Grub as well. So my 2 favourites are probably going to be the Fescue Flask and the Mutter Grub, in my honest opinion. I think that's good. Mutter Grub, like I said, just gives you that extra chance of casting that spell for you to be able to pick what point on the Cycle Corruption you want for that point in the game instead of making it really random. And then the Fescue Flask is just a really handy artifact to have for your general or indeed another hero in your army. So yeah, those two are going to be my favourites. Right, okay, and then we're going to move on to the demon ones now. So this is going to be for Nurgle demon heroes. And of course, this does all depend on what their keywords are. Okay, so what we've got here for number 1 is a Noxious Nexus. So at the start of your hero phase, roll a dice for each enemy unit within 7 inches of the bearer. If the roll is equal to or less than that number of the current battle round, the unit being rolled for suffers 1 mortal wound. For example, in the second battle round, enemy units would suffer a mortal wound on a 1 or 2. Now, I mean, this is a fairly reliable way to get those mortal wounds through. However, it's only 1 mortal wound, and it's only a range of 7 inches. Not bad, but I think there are better things in all honesty. So moving on to number 2, we've got a Nurgle's Nail. So pick one of the bearer's melee weapons to be Nurgle's Nail. At the end of each combat phase, roll 2d6 for each enemy model that was allocated any wounds caused by Nurgle's Nail in that phase and was not slain. If the result is exactly 7, the model being rolled for is slain. Any other results have no effect. Okay, so this is what I like to call the sort of fun artifact. A lot of army books have, like, you know, one artifact in there which is just bizarre, completely random, really hard to achieve, but if you manage to achieve it, the enemy is dead. So really quite hard to achieve, not impossible, but pretty hard. But if you get it, and in the dream scenario you're going against Nagash and you cause a wound and all that sort of thing, and you go through and it dies on a 7, it kills it. Now, like I say, this is really hard to get off, but the most important thing is this is a fear weapon to use against your opponent. If your opponent has got a Nagash, anything like this, and you've got this on, let's say, a great big great unclean one, which Nagash was going to charge to kill it, or hopefully kill it, and at least rip it to pieces. Now Nagash might be a little bit more hesitant to do so, because unless it can kill that Nurgle, big old fatty, before the Nurgle great unclean one hits it, then it's going to be in a bit of trouble, because it's going to have that fear. Now, like I say, quite hard for you guys to get off, roll a 7, but it's just the fact that you can. It's like Arkhan's Curse of Years. Really quite hard for him to get it, so he auto-deletes a unit. But just the fear and just the threat range of doing it, and I know that's a ranged spell, and this is just basically something for combat. However, it's a fear tactic. That's what this is going to be used for. It's not for what it actually does majority of the time. Majority of the time it's not going to do anything. But it's for the fear, because the fear is always going to be there and always going to be constant for your opponent to think about. And that might affect their movement. And like I say, the more problems you present to your opponent, the more likely they are going to fail. Okay, so, and then we move on to the third one, which is a Bountiful Swarm. So at the start of your hero phase, pick an enemy model within 3 inches of the bearer, and then roll a dice. If the roll is greater than that model's wounds characteristic, then it is slain. If a model with a wounds characteristic of 4+ is slain by the Bountiful Swarm, before you remove the model, you can add a Beast of Nurgle to your army and set it up within 1 inch of that enemy model. Okay, so not bad, especially if you're trying to take out, you know, banners, champions, special weapons and units like gore blades, you know, skeleton banners that make you -1 bravery. It doesn't really matter in this army, I suppose, if you're running a lot of demons. But, you know, just those sort of things, you know, grand blades for stormcast. A lot of units have got special things. Or taking even just like the Hornblower away from, you know, like a unit of Moser Guard, so they can't, if they charge something else, they can't reroll their charges. Something like that, you know, it's quite useful. And yes, I mean, against like Moser Guard as an example, they have 4 wounds, so you need to get a 5 to beat it, but it's not as hard if you're going to try and take out those heroes that have 5 wounds, because then you're going to need to try and get 6s, which is just really quite hard for you to achieve. However, if you get it against, like I say, a Moser Guard, something like that, 4 wounds, a Crypt Horror, Crypt Flare, something along those lines, you get a Beast of Nurgle model. And like I say, they're not the best unit in the game, they're War Scroll, but they're not bad. And yeah, it's just a cool way to take things out. And it's not like once per game, again, it's at the start of your hero phase, and you have to be within 3 inches of something. So this is going to have to be on something that's going to stuck into the fight like that, like, you know, a great unclean one. Because if I was running Nurgle Demons, I'd probably just boost the fuck out of how powerful I can make a Great Unclean One, if I'm honest. But yeah, so there's that. And then the number 4 form we've got is a Wither Staff. So we all hit rolls of 6 for enemy units while they are within 12 inches of the bear. Okay, this is my favourite so far, straight away, out of all the Demon Nobles. This is going to affect the enemy's army the most. So in that way, it benefits your whole army. And it's not wholly within 12 inches, it's within 12 inches. That's going to affect the enemy's movement, so they don't have to have that problem if you're fighting against Nagash. They're going to absolutely hate you so much because their 6s generate extra wounds. And you're going to be laughing your massive grin off just by making the enemy do this. And when the enemy rolls, like, I don't know, even if you're going against Spirit Host as an example, they roll a bunch of 6s to do more wins to you, and then you go, yeah, re-roll all of those. So it's just really, really good. And yeah, and like as an example, because you can't re-roll, so this ever comes up, let's say the enemy gets a 6 there hit against you, and then you go re-roll that, and then they get a 1. And let's say that enemy unit was Blood Warriors with twin axes, so they get to re-roll 1s. So firstly they roll a 6, you make them re-roll that, and then they roll 1, and it's like, oh, I can re-roll 1s, and it's like, no, because you've already re-rolled that dice, so you can't re-roll, you know, one of the rules of 1. So yeah, good fun times for you, and a way to break friendships and alienate people. Okay, and then move on to number 5, Tome of 1,000 Poxes. So if the bearer is a wizard, add 1 to casting rolls for any spells from the lore of Nurgle that they attempt to cast. If the bearer is not a wizard, they can attempt to cast the Subterraneous Pestilence spell from page 67 in each of your hero phases. They cannot unbind spells. So having a look at the Subterraneous Pestilence. So Subterraneous Pestilence has a casting value of 6 and successfully cast. Each enemy unit within 7 inches of the caster suffers 1 mortal wound. Units with more than 5 models suffer D3 mortal wounds instead. I quite like that, because it's not even like, and then roll a dice, and on a 5 then they suffer D3 mortal wounds. No, it's for 5 more models, and it's not 10 more models, so you're not looking at really big horde units, you're just looking at sort of standard size units. Anything up from there, it's just not going to really affect, you know, those heroes, but those heroes will still take 1 mortal wound. And cast value is 6, so more than achievable. Yeah, I quite like that spell you get to cast, in all honesty. And if you're already a wizard, then you can add 1 for casting rolls for any spells from the lore of Nurgle that they attempt to cast. So it's not going to help your casting against Arcane Bolt and Mystic Shield and that hero's own unique spell. It's just going to be from the ones you get within the spell lore section within this book, essentially. But that can still be useful. And like I say, particularly on a hero that's not a wizard, even though you have got a lot of those for your Nurgle demons, in all honesty, especially for, you know, unnamed ones. So yeah, not bad. Again, remember, if this goes on for a hero that is not a wizard, that does not turn them into a wizard, they can just simply cast a Subterraneous Pestilence spell, if I pronounce that correctly. Okay, and then number 6 is the Endless Gift. So at the start of each battle phase, roll a dice for each wound that was allocated to this model during the same turn. On a 4+, the wound is healed. Ooh, that is a pretty nice one to have, and a great unclean one, in all honesty. Yeah, so looking at all of these, so easily, favourite ones are the Withered Staff and the Endless Gift. My favourite between those two, the Endless Gift is very good for keeping that Great Unclean One alive, but the Withered Staff is going to be my favourite, because when I look at artifacts, command traits, as I said before, I look at ones that benefit your whole army, and by debuffing the enemy's army a pretty big range, it really does help out your own army. So the Withered Staff is by far my favourite, and then kind of closely followed behind by the Endless Gift. Okay, so now that we've looked at the ROTBRINGER artifacts and the Nurgle Demon artifacts, we are now going to look at the Immortal Artifacts, which are the Plague-Ridden Gifts. So we're going to look at number 1, and this is going to be the Vigilant Blade. So pick one of the bearers of melee weapons to be the Vigilant Blade. Add 1 to damage characteristics for attacks made with Vigilant Blade if the wound roll for the attack is 5+. Not terrible, but not particularly good. in all honesty, just because you require 5+ to do it. And yeah, with mortals you do have potential to make a 2 damage attacks into like 3 damage with like the Chaos Lord and Demonic Mount option. You know, you've got also the Chaos Lord and Manticore, all these things going on. However, on a 5+, a lot of other armies just get it, like +1 to their damage. So yeah, not a massive, because it says pick one of the bearer's melee weapons as well. And bear in mind, this can't be for the mount, it's just for your guy riding it that has a melee weapon, and you can pick it and make it add 1 to its damage roll, a 5+ with a wound roll for that weapon. It's just too many things you need to line up. I'm not saying this is impossible, you probably will get it off a fair amount of time, you know, you get it a third of the amount of time, you know, statistically. But some armies just get +1 damage and this guy doesn't. So, and your mortals, yeah, they can go on ROTBRINGERS. That is something to bear in mind. It's not just Slaves of Darkness. However, none of them are crazily powerful in combat for the non-name character ones. So yeah, I think there are better things, shall we say. Right, it's not, like I say, okay, just to end off, it's not bad, but it could have been a lot better. Okay, so number 2 we have the Fortred Shroud. So reroll hit rolls of 6+ or more for attacks that target this bearer in the combat phase. Okay, so like the Wither Staff for the demons, but not nearly as good. So yeah, it's alright, but I'd rather just have a demon in my army and give it the Wither Staff and then just make it a whole lot better. So yeah, I'm going to sort of look past that one. Okay, and then number 3 we have Supplicus Stench Plate. So enemy units that are within 3 inches of the bearer at the end of the movement phase suffer D3 mortal wounds. Okay, so firstly I was like, you can't move within 3 inches of the enemy. However, this is just basically so if they're in combat with you, they're going to take D3 mortal wounds. I think that's really, really good, because especially if you've got a fairly large base, like, you know, a Manticore or something like that, you're making a lot of enemy units take mortal wounds if they got stuck into combat with you. And when the enemy says to you, oh, what artifacts you got? And you go, oh, I've got the Stench Plate, mate. And they probably don't know what that is, and they'll probably just go, yeah, okay. That's what I'd say anyway, because I didn't know what it was until I read it. So I wouldn't take much note of it. And then I go, oh my god, I'm taking loads of fucking mortal wounds. And if you've got an army that can't save against mortal wounds, or your opponent's got an army that can't save against mortal wounds, that is going to cause them a lot of issues. So yeah, a simple one, but a nice one. And then the Eye of Nurgle at number 4. And this is once per battle at the start of your hero phase, you can roll 2d6 if there are any enemy units within 12 inches of the bearer. If the result is exactly 7, the closest enemy model to the bearer is slain. Not a massive fan of this. It's like the one we looked at before that managed to slay things on a 7, which is the Nurgle's Nail for the Nurgle demons. However, this has got a better range on it, but it needs to be the closest. There's just too many things to line up. Like I said, it's a really cool fun one if like Archaon happens to be the closest thing to you on the enemy side, and then you can just kill them outright. That's awesome, but the chances of you realistically having that on the table are very slim. So, and it's once per battle as well. It's not just all the time, it's once per battle. So yeah, I will not be taking this one. It's cool, but I will not be taking it. And then the Carrion Dirge. So subtract 2 from the Brave characteristics of enemy units while they are within 12 inches of the bearer. Which is good, especially if you gave the bearer the Hideous Visage from the command traits for the Nurgle Mortals, which we looked at in the last video. That will start making a bravery bomb of -4 if the enemy is in combat, that is, because the Hideous Visage needs to be within 3 inches. However, if you compare this with a few more in the spells you can put in your army, you can easily make it, just putting one more in this spell on there, you can make the enemy -6 bravery, chucking a couple more, make them -8, you can really start now hitting your opponent's bravery. It really, really hurts. And if I'm honest, me going into Nurgle, when I fight them, I wouldn't particularly think they could modify my bravery to a crazy amount, but they certainly can. So you want to go down that route, you certainly have that option. And I personally love using bravery bombs to target my enemy, just because I feel like the Battleshock phase is not for, you know, obviously good tournament players and all this. Probably many of you listen to this, you are fully aware of how much the Battleshock phase can be impactful. But I feel like a lot of people and especially myself when I was learning, I sort of overlooked the battleship phase, just like a mass phase, just to find out if anything has run away and stuff. But if you can abuse it to your opponent, especially if they sort of underestimate it and just think, oh, I haven't lost that many, and then you go, yeah, but you lost one model, and now you're minus that 8 bravery. That's absolutely huge. So yeah, like I say, I really like taking advantage of it. Right, okay. And then looking at number 6 is the Shield of Growths. So you can reroll save rolls for the bearer if the roll is equal to or less than the number of wounds currently allocated to the bearer. Okay, so that makes him that. Basically, the more damage the bearer takes, the more wounds he's suffered, the easier he is going to be to survive. Sounds a bit funny, but the more wounds he's taken, the better chance of him being able to re-roll those save rolls and really sort of stop him from dying when he's on his last legs. A little bit like the Black Knight from Monty Python. Okay, so if I'm looking at all of these, which ones do I prefer? So the Shield of Growth is quite fun. The Stench Plate is good. The Carrion Dinge is good as well, because that's -2 within 12 inches of the bearer. So for me, it's going to be between the Stench Plate and the Carrion Dirge. The Stench Plate, I think, is a really good, like, once per, you know, like a one-trick pony a little bit, because your opponent won't be expecting it, and then when they get hit by it, they go, oh crap, I'm going to have to stay away from him, and then it's going to affect their movement. So, like I say, a one-trick pony, which is good. However, for long-term purposes, I think the Carrion Dirge, obviously depends on what army you're fighting, but that's just a 12-inch bubble, making the enemy -2 bravery, means it's going to modify their movement, especially if their army doesn't have great bravery. And a powerful army, let's say Skaven, haven't got great bravery, and this is really going to impact on that and really take advantage. Okay, so that are all the artifacts for the Maggotkin of Nurgle from their own battle tome. So like we say, some interesting ones there, some ones there that I think aren't really needed because there's better things you can take instead, so most people are never going to take some of those artifacts, but that's always the case in every battle tome. And I'd be really interested to hear your guys' thoughts on them, because like I say, if you play the army, let me know if there was anything you disagreed with what I said, you think, no, I was wrong, just talking about that artifact, that is really good, and if I said it was bad, let me know in the comments so we can learn from it. Again, if there's anything I said that you do agree with, put it in the comments as well, because like I said, it's not just me who learns from this, it's everyone else who wants to get into Nurgle, wants to try and find out how to defeat Nurgle. We're all learning as a good community. So guys, that is the end of the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please like, subscribe and comment down below. That is all absolutely free for you guys to do so, and massively helps support the channel. If you'd like to support the channel a step further, I've now set up a Patreon account, which is a way for the channel to get financial support for me to be able to buy battle tomes like I have for this army of the Maggotkin of Nurgle, so I can read it properly, saving up towards getting things like a better microphone, a camera to do battle reports, and also to help me be able to put in the time to making these videos. It really does help massively. And on that note, to say a big thank you to my vampires and Patreon. These are tier 2 people that donate at least $5 a month to me, and this is going to be to Martin, Carl, Simon and Max. So again guys, thank you very much for your donations, for all those things I've always mentioned. Really does help support, and thank you very much for your continued support. And everyone who does enjoy the content that this channel makes, definitely should say a thank you to you guys for the help you do provide. And if you can't support me on Patreon, that's absolutely fine. I'm just really glad that you came and checked out this video. So guys, remember, until next time, Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.